Okay, so welcome to Channel 27, everybody. Today is a great, exciting day. We have a special guest today, Ksanati, who is a famous Vedic astrologer. He doesn't realize this, but I've been watching him for a long time now. And what really piqued my interest, the first video I ever saw that he did was astrocartography. And I have been I have the map somewhere. I tried to study it for a few weeks and I was just kind of confused. But I absolutely love astrocartography. And this one right here is a master at it. And he's also a really phenomenal Vedic astrologer. I've learned so much from him. He's on Saptarishi's Astrology all the time. He is a amazing Vedic astrologer. So make sure you check out his websites. They're going to be in the description box below. So thanks so much for coming on my channel. It is so great to talk to you.
Thank you, Heidi, for having me here at Channel 27. I'm just so super excited and just really feel blessed to share this science of Jyotish and this innovation of astrocartography with everyone. And I appreciate your enthusiasm and your knowledge, and just excited for the magic we're going to share today.
Right. Can't wait. Oh, all right. So let's talk about astrocartography and how did you, did you start studying this before first, or like, how did you get into astrocartography?
So I kind of got into astrocartography. Well, first of all, like my grandmother, she's like a Western astrologer. So I got introduced to astrology when I was very young. But the tropical Western astrology, when I started to study it a little bit, it never just quite fit right. And so, years went by and I decided to go to the Ayurvedic Institute in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and study the ancient Vedic science of Ayurveda, the science of longevity. And they had an elective there. They had a Jyotish elective course.
Wow.
With Simon Chikoisky. And I took this elective course, and it was like a 10-class introduction to Jyotish. And one of those classes during that introduction was astrocartography. And after that class, all I could do was be obsessed about astrocartography. I remember I would be looking at my astrocartography, looking at all of my friends' astrocartography, because it was something that was very innovative. It is kind of beyond the tropical sidereal argument, because Jim Lewis, the founder, it's based on angles, so it's not exactly whether we interpret it can be Western or it can be Jyotish, but the astrocartography itself, it's kind of beyond that argument. And so I was just so fascinated by that. But it started just with an elective and just feeling like this new hobby.
So what you're saying is that it uses it does use this tropical calculations. Is that right? Is that how it works when you calculate it?
No, actually, I'm not like a mathematician.
Yeah.
But it's basically like the calculations of those lines are based on certain angles that are beyond the zodiac.
Oh,
so
wow. Okay.
It has to do with longitude, latitude, planetary lines. And so the zodiac is how we interpret those lines. But since I'm more of a symbolic, more spiritual, I think of those lines as the places in the globe where that planetary energy's light or prana is the most concentrated. So we're looking at the highest point of concentration of prana for each planet, depending on those lines.
Interesting. Okay. I like that, because I like when there's no confusion, because, exactly. The whole Vedic tropical Western thing and sidereal it's kind of dicey, right? And it's a debate, and I can see good and I can see positive things in both. So it's very controversial, to say the least. So
exactly. And that's one of the things I love about astrocartography. It's really, there's no tropical sidereal controversy there.
Right.
You can interpret the ACG map tropically. You can interpret the ACG map Jyotish, Vedic, sidereally, but the map will remain the same.
Wow, that's interesting. All right, so we're going to use my chart too, right? So we have it all pulled up.
Yes, I have your birth chart here, and I also have your astrocartography map. So should I share my screen then?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, and I don't care. You can show the time and the birthday. I'm not like,
You're cool with that? Okay.
no, it's no secret. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I share my stuff all the time. I mean, you know, live your life like an open book, right?
Yeah, I have nothing to hide. My chart's a mess. No, it's
I
okay.
actually think your chart is really awesome.
Oh, good. I'm glad somebody thinks so. No, it is good. It's good for certain things. It's good for investigating. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that 10th house is pretty powerful as well.
True. Yes. You're right about that.
Um, okay, so you were born September 12th, 1984, 1:38 p.m. in Pittsburgh, PA?
Yes.
Okay, great. So shall we focus on North America to start?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing I usually address when I'm doing an astrocartography reading with someone is first let's take a look at the energy where you live. Then we can look at any questions or have, but what the heck's going on where you live? So you're currently in Maryland.
Yep.
Maryland, which is right here. As you notice, there are no major Graha lines there, which means they're over here, Neptune, over here, Mars. And because Mars is over there, there's some influence from Mars, but there's no major Graha lines. That doesn't mean there's not planetary influence there, but it doesn't mean it's a point of extreme concentration. What we're talking about, like the prana of the different planets, when you have a place where there's no strong planetary lines, you can consider that place to be neutral.
Oh, okay.
A lot of times when people hear neutral, they think that's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. We don't always want to be doing all of this intense karmic work all the time. So a neutral energy means that your chart, your natal birth chart, it plays out as it is. So that sometimes that can just mean that your karma will turn out how it would turn out normally. We're not looking at any overly strong planetary influences, but you have to look at aspects, especially when there are no lines in that area. Here, there's this free program, Astro Travel. I love because it's free software. There's a great Vedic software for astrocartography called KsanatiJyotish, but not everyone wants to pay $250 for software. So there's a free software here on astro.com. So the first thing I look for here is disharmonious aspects. These need to be interpreted because whatever disharmonious aspects are showing up here, they're going to be affecting you in some way. And it looks like we have a disharmonious aspect for you in Annapolis. This would be Jupiter. Oh no, that's actually Neptune. Neptune, okay? So we're looking at a disharmonious Neptune. Now, as a Vedic astrologer, we don't always talk about Neptune. We don't always talk about Uranus, but whenever we're doing the astrocartography, sometimes we do. I believe your Neptune is in Sagittarius conjunction with Jupiter in the second house. Yep. So we're looking at an area which is we're looking at an aspect in the second house here, which will be potentially slightly challenging or disharmonious. Now, your Neptune is in the second house of wealth. Now, your Jupiter and the Sagittarius in the second house of wealth will support you with overall wealth throughout your life. You should have decent wealth and decent income. But the Neptune disharmonious aspect here might be bringing some challenges. Challenges to the savings account, challenges to the banking account. We can talk about certain surprises, some unexpected losses in money, some unexpected spending of money. Now, overall, that Jupiter and Mamula Trikona sign in your second house is going to give you good wealth throughout your life. But we're talking about some subtle challenges from this Neptune influence here.
Yeah, that makes sense too, for sure. Absolutely.
And so let's see what help you're getting in Annapolis. Are there any harmonious aspects? What planets are really trying to support you out there? No very strong harmonious aspects, but we have a very interesting harmonious nodal aspect. Again, that's a harmonious nodal aspect. Whenever you have nodal major Graha line, it can be a mixed effect. It can be challenging. the best type of nodal line is a harmonious aspect nodal line, because you're only getting more of the beneficial side of the nodal influence. So we're talking about a strong Ketu Rahu influence. On the Ketu side, it could be supporting the more mystical, spiritual, occult, esoteric energies. On the Rahu side, which is in your 7th house, this could be activating more of the marriage, more of the relationship energies. Luckily, that's a harmonious aspect. So I don't know if you are married or you are with a partner, but that would be a very interesting person, to say the least.
I was married and divorced. I've had an interesting turn of events with relationships, but I've been single for a really long time. I was only married 2 years, and I did get married in a Venus Rahu. So yeah.
Usually when those marriages start in a Rahu period, it doesn't always support the greatest longevity for that marriage.
Yeah, right. That's okay. I've already accepted this.
But this harmonious Rahu aspect here could show even a harmonious Rahu aspect. Rahu is a malefic force. So that Rahu in your 7th house in Taurus, even though it's exalted, or considered exalted by some astrologers, there would still be some challenges in the relationship that would come in there. We can talk about, with the Rahu vibration, when you first start dating somebody, when you are first start, the person who you are seeing them is not actually necessarily the complete expression of who they are. And this might mean they're hiding some things from you, or there are certain secretive energies that when you start to date with them a while or start to be with them for a while, then these weaknesses and these challenges and these things that they're hiding from you might start to come out a little bit.
Yeah. Or I hid things from them. Yeah. I'm just being honest. Like, I was not a saint in relationships, and I always struggled with that. So I realized that I needed to be alone for a while to figure out me. Because I feel like Rahu and Ketu work both ways. You know, you get a little bit of both. And I think a lot of people don't admit this, but I will admit it. So I learned I learned through other people growing up and always being in a relationship. So then after I learned, finally, like, I feel like 7 years later, maybe I could be in a relationship somewhat, you know, after I had to get through all my demons and all that fun stuff. So.
Yeah. Definitely. And that exalted Ketu Lagna, that's a strong indication for a dharma of moksha. And a dharma for moksha doesn't allow for too much attachment. However, exalted Rahu in the 7th is most satisfied through a very stable, dependable, someone that you could be attached to. So there's that bit of Ketu, bit of Rahu. On one side of it, there's this grounding force that's stable and secure. On the other side, there's no attachment. You can't be attached to the partner. So those dualities definitely exist.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's transformational for sure.
It is, yes. Yeah.
So that kind of is an example of how we would just get a general idea of the energies in Annapolis. No major graha lines there. So now the next thing I would like to ask you, Heidi, are there any specific questions you would have in terms of your astrocartography?
Well, I think it's interesting, like where most of my clients come from with astrology.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, so and also, like, I love South Beach and I love Florida, and I see my Mars line kind of flies right through there.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Beneficial to, like, move to Florida, I guess.
Okay. So let's take a look at those energies in Florida. Now, it's very interesting whenever we're looking at a Mars line, because Mars is generally considered a malefic planet. But I just did this webinar, how to improve your karma with Mars. And one of my main points was that Mars always gets a bad rap. And actually, the Sanskrit meaning of Mars is Mangala. Mangala means auspicious. So the direct definition of Mars is that which is auspicious, that which is blessed, that which is enchanted, that which brings fortune, that which brings luck. One of my favorite ancient descriptions of Mars is the bearer of welfare, the bearer of support. It gives support where support is needed. It gives energy where energy is needed. So yeah, there's all sorts of challenges that Mars can bring, but let's not just assume that the Mars line could be challenging. However, first we have to take a look at the fact that you're a Scorpio Lugna, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That
And
means
I'm in real estate. I do real estate. I sell homes too. So
that makes sense. I could see that in that 10th house.
mm-hmm.
So your chart is ruled by Mars. So that automatically means that when we're looking at your astrocartography, each of the way that you relate to the other planets will be from a perspective of Mars, because your natal chart is ruled by Mars. So automatically, if Mars is in a good position, Mars becomes a functionally benefic planet. So take away that malefic understanding of Mars, and we're already seeing a Mars which is acting functionally benefic. Then that is double emphasized by the fact that your Mars is also in your Lugna, and it's also in the sign of Scorpio. So Mars is in its natural sign, which gives it very high dignity. So not only is Mars acting like a functional benefic in your chart, but it also has very strong dignity. And so the Mars line is going to be more beneficial for you than most, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Mars line will always come with its challenges. But Mars will be good because it rules your 6th house. It'll be good for you to do work there. It'll be good for you to have things that relate to money and things that relate to your career there. Because it rules your Lugna, it influences your Dharma. So it is a good place for you to be doing your spiritual work, for you to be doing your Dharma, for you to be doing what you are called to do, your higher calling. And with K2, there's that real higher calling aspect. There might be these energies where Mars, that major Mars line, it might pull you to that energy for you to do your Dharma, for you to support your your career or financial success. Okay, so Miami is like getting a huge crux of that energy. So you're really gonna go to Miami. So we're talking about all the positives. Okay, let's talk about what the challenge is there. Miami is naturally an extremely hot place, and Mars of all of the planets is the most Pitta planets. You're a Scorpio K2 Mars Lugna. So your constitution, your Ayurvedic constitution, you're Pitta dominant. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And so when a Pitta dominant person goes to a Pitta place where the Pitta energy is overactivated, there's a huge vulnerability to excessive amount of the Pitta dosha. So you might, and Mars rules your 6th house, which is the first 3 stages of disease. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about a place that's going to be very beneficial for you, but it's going to be hot as hell, and you're going to possibly have issues of, heat there, but not just heat. There's more energetic things like restlessness, irritability, frustration, annoyance, irritation, a go mentality, a less of an ability to slow down. And you probably already have that strong go element a part of who you are. Mm-hmm. So again, it seems like a place that we'd be productive, but I wouldn't necessarily encourage you to live there, or you'd burn up like a candle.
And I am afraid of fire, so I'll probably just catch on fire if I go there. So yeah, no, that makes sense. And it's funny because every time I go to South Beach, that's exactly how I am. I'm a feisty one there, and I have fun, but it's like intense fun.
Yeah,
so that's interesting.
And I'm just going to peek to see the aspect lines there, see if anything else is showing up there. No disharmonious, no challenging aspects, so that's good, other than the challenges that would naturally come with the Mars line. Mm-hmm. And as far as beneficial aspects, it looks like there's a moon. We're getting a moon beneficial aspect. Moon is in your 5th house. Okay, so this would be a good place for relationship. This would be a good place for dating. This would be a good place for creativity. Also, the moon is the devotion. So all of us have different things which we're devoted to, but by going closer to that moon aspect line, your devotional energy gets activated. So you have more energy to give to the things which you're devoted to. So that moon is a nice aspect that's supporting you in Miami there as well. And some different possibilities there with creativity and relationships showing up.
That's okay. So one of the guys that I dated after I was married, this guy, we went to South Beach, and it was literally like the best time for, and there's an interesting correlation with guys, the men that I've dated, because they've never been from like around here. And it's interesting, like my ex-husband grew up in California, came from Arizona and came here for work. And this other guy that I dated, same pattern. This other guy that I really kind of liked a little bit after my husband, same type of pattern. So there's like really interesting patterns how that worked out too. I'm just curious if that's like, does that mean I'm going to always marry somebody that's from Arizona?
Not necessarily. It might show, it doesn't necessarily mean that, but if you were to go there, you would probably get in a new relationship. So, but it also shows that people from that place, you'll be attracted to them and they'll be attracted to you. So you're looking at a co-mutual attraction. And then also like my moon and Venus line, I went into a moon dasha, and then I went to New Mexico where my moon and Venus were, and I met my wife. Then I got engaged. Then I got married. So also these lines, they once you meet someone, if they're very strongly activated, then depending on which planets are there, it really encourages that relationship to accelerate to its full potential. So, by being in a relation, when I was on the East Coast, I had many nonchalant relationships, but all the relationships I had on the West Coast were very serious very quickly. So it was always more supportive of the marriage vibration, the energies that I had in the West Coast. Now, I married my wife. I moved back here to Philadelphia, but all of the engagement, the dating, all of that took place on the West Coast where my energy was stronger for that.
Wow, interesting. So where is the best place for me to live, would you say? If you had just like overall in general.
Yeah. Should we focus on North America, or should we really just...
Oh, I'm probably not going to make any irrational decisions like that anytime soon. So let's just focus on North America.
Okay, cool. Cool. So first, there's a few different ways that we look at this. Now, you look at the fourth house, but the ruler of your fourth house is Saturn, which is exalted in the 12th. So this means that I'm not going to encourage you to move to your Saturn line until you're ready for moksha, until you're ready for retirement, until you're ready to stop making money. But I am going to tell you that there is no better place for you to move when you're actually ready to focus on spirituality and forget about the material world than that Saturn line, especially with its activation. So in other words, you should retire to your Saturn line. But while you're still being productive during this time of your life, you should not live near your Saturn line.
Where is my Saturn line? Is it the one,
It's in Southern California.
Yeah, I definitely had some interesting things happen in California when I went there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's affecting Southern California. It would be affecting Arizona as well, Utah.
Wow.
So these places are very auspicious for you for your moksha. But
so if I want to die, just head on out there.
Yeah, but also if you want to spiritually evolve and you no longer want to be distracted by this material world.
Yeah. Okay.
Like a good place to retire and just focus on your spiritual evolution. Because as an exalted K2, you have a strong indication that you can really grow in your moksha process throughout this life. But with, got to satisfy all that material stuff first, but there will be a time when you're ready to put your coat on the rack, so to speak.
Oh, that's funny. All right. What about Texas? Is that the same place? Same type of place?
So now that we're not looking at those lines, I just take a look at your chart and I notice some different energies as far as the dignity. So Mercury is a decent line in your chart, but your Mercury's in Leo. So Leo's not Mercury's favorite sign. It's also not Mercury's worst sign. It's kind of a neutral vibration for Mercury. So this place would be have a strong energy for you, and this includes the states of Colorado, New Mexico, and Texas. And your Mercury is in the 10th house, so it supports your career. Mercury also rules your 11th house, so it might support certain dream achievements, certain ambitions. Let's see, Mercury also rules your 8th house. So maybe in your Colorado, you'll puff a little of the marijuana. But basically, again, strong energy for you near this Mercury line. These states not showing up as the most favorable place for you to live necessarily.
Lots of my clients come from there, and then also my Saturn line too, though. It's interesting.
It makes perfect sense that a lot of your clients come from your Mercury line, as it's in the 10th house of your career. Yeah. The Saturn line also is aspecting your 6th house. There's a full aspect of Saturn, which is the house of work. So it makes sense that your clients come from the Saturn line as well.
Yeah.
Now, looking at the dignities in your chart, or the positions in your chart, which the planets are the happiest, we're looking at a Jupiter being, now Saturn is exalted, but we already talked about that, not necessarily the best place for you to live. Your Jupiter has very beautiful dignity. Your Sun has very beautiful dignity. Your Moon is happy, and your Mars has very beautiful dignity. So these are some of the planets that actually might be overall the most beneficial to live by. Interesting thing, the only one that really shows up in the United States is that Sun line, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
However, where you currently are, you're not super far from this Mars line.
Right.
So Mars is functionally benefic in your chart. So there's some positive influence in there. However, your Sun in Leo, there is a lot more potential in your career. I haven't even taken a look at your dasha periods. You go into Sun dasha. Your next dasha is Sun dasha. It starts in a year and a half, 2 years. So there seems to be, some energy around the Sun line here. However, the Sun line and the Rahu line are kind of crossing over. So, how can I put this? It's like a blessing. It's a very positive energy for you to be near your Sun line. Off the bat in the United States, my intuition is that would be the most beneficial place for you to live. It aspects your 4th house. It's in its natural sign. It's in the house of your career. However, the fact that Rahu is so close and Ketu, that can bring some challenges, but not necessarily if you continue to do the type of work that you're doing right now, which is like astrology readings, doing these videos, and the more esoteric, mystical, occult. Maybe that energy will be beneficial there. So, yeah.
Interesting.
So it looks like that's pretty strong in Chicago, Nashville, Atlanta. And also you're getting that in Florida. You're getting that in Florida, but closer to that north west part of Florida.
Okay. Weird. Interesting. All right. Well, I don't plan on moving to any of those places, so I think I'll just stay where I'm at until I go to the next country. Probably.
Yeah, exactly.
If it's neutral now, why not? Maybe we'll just keep it neutral. That's how I look at that.
And also think about your chart. There's a lot of intense energies going on there, huh?
Yeah.
You got exalted Ketu, exalted Rahu, exalted Saturn. So that energy is already strong. So you don't necessarily want to take on any stronger vibrations.
That's kind of how I feel. It's already strong here. I feel like it's already intense. I can't imagine it getting any more intense. Like my life always is intense, I feel like.
Now there's one more thing I want to check for you, and that's the harmonious aspects, because it kind of shows what places might be have some positive energies that you're not necessarily aware of.
Okay.
So first thing we talked about this one, there's a Venus line. There's a Venus line not too far from where you currently are in Annapolis. We talked about the Rahu line. The Venus line, your Venus is 11th house debilitation. Okay. Okay.
Oh, you're funny. Yeah.
So in that case, that could be challenging for the relationships. That could be challenging in terms of encouraging perfectionism vibrations. However, you should also be able to do things perfectly. I don't know how else to say it. It's a harmonious aspect. So with the debilitation, the curse is that you're striving for perfection. The blessing is that you'll get pretty close.
That's, you know what, as much as debilitated Venus gets a bad rap, I'm going to tell you, I think it's not I don't think it's as bad as it's all cracked out to be. Like, it's gave me a lot of great things, and it has been, it makes me not such a romancer, and it kind of ruins that type of stuff, the lovey-dovey emotional stuff, but I think it keeps me kind of grounded to a degree.
Definitely. And my mother is actually a debilitation Venus, and she's a professional artist. And her art is very unique. It's very different. And so, yeah, I agree with you. It gets a bad rap. It's just that sometimes those Mercury and those Venus energies, it's an interesting dance.
Yeah.
Interesting dance.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Okay, now what about globally?
Okay, great.
And is there anywhere to show past lives?
Yes, that's a whole other area of astrocartography that I've done a lot of research in, because I personally, it's one of my greatest areas of interest is studying past lives. Like, I like to focus on that in my readings too, like based on the karma I'm seeing in your chart. Like, I'm not a psychic, but like I can interpret energies to speculate what your past lifetimes could have been for you to earn this karma, because everything is just a transference from one lifetime to the other. Yeah. When you're looking at these lines, especially in other countries, you're looking at your past lifetime karmas. You might say, oh, why the hell do I have all of this energy in this place? I've never been there. I've never been interested in going there. These lines, they can show that this is where your soul has been in its past incarnations. You know, there's certain vectors, energies of points of concentration too, that kind of show. So, for example, you have a Venus vector here. See this green circle?
Yes.
That Venus vector there is possibly shows past lifetime in Brazil.
Makes total sense. And is there something in South Africa too?
Yeah, you have you have Jupiter vector in South Africa. So
what's a vector?
Vector is these circles here, which is the highest point of concentration.
Wow.
It shows where the energy, the prana is originating from, is how I like to think about it. So at some point, I believe our past lifetime, we either travel. Sometimes it's in the middle of the ocean, so it's like just the energy around that area, like, you know, because the vectors are so concentrated that they influence hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles outside of them.
Right.
So yeah, it's the highest points of concentration there. But you don't necessarily want to go to those places in this lifetime.
Okay. Again,
because it's such a concentrated energy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if you want to specifically work on your karma with that specific planet, so you can go to that place, but generally it is a overly concentrated place. You don't want to live right on top of the vector, but I think it shows more of the past lifetime karma.
Interesting. That's really, and where's the blue one? The moon, where is that? In Thailand, Malaysia? Is that what this is?
Yeah, so we're looking at the Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam, that kind of Indonesian area.
Makes sense.
And then let's see, we have a sun line here, which is like up through Costa Rica, Panama. Then you have a Mercury one here towards South Mexico. Yeah, so yeah, I do believe that these lines show our past lifetime connections. I still am continuing to do more research to like find some examples of exactly how, because in other words, even if we think someone's past lifetime is from somewhere, unless we do past lifetime regression, it's really hard to sync it up.
Or there, I have one other, I can't find, where are they? I was going to show you something. I have, do you know what divination rods are?
Yeah.
I use these a lot. You could ask them, like, was so-and-so from a past life? I've got 2 sets. They're crazy, like how these things, I'm not very psychic, but I can tell you that these things have opened up something different inside of me. You know, it's like some sort of little more mystical side.
Yeah, and I've seen some of the, with some of my astrocartography clients, like some extreme resonation with where I might be feeling they have past lifetimes from. Like I was reading this client the other day, and like they had all of these vectors in Israel and like Egypt, and like it just like totally resonated with them. They had never been there, but they had always felt like just this incredible connection to that place. So yeah, these lines, they're a manifestation of our karma, just like our charts are.
Mm-hmm.
Along those lines, some people have astrocartographies that make them stay in the country that they were born in their entire life. Some people have astrocartography that makes them stay in the city that they were born in that their entire life. Like they never get out of the city that they were born in.
Right.
And then other people's astrocartography encourages them to spend their whole life traveling the world.
Yeah. So where do you think, out of all the other, where do you think I should never go? As on a trip or anything, like, would you say?
Yeah, definitely great question. One of the areas of research I do is for danger.
Yeah.
What is danger? Because actually there is a correlation between fatal accidents, assassinations. I did this astrocartography analysis of John F. Kennedy,
Right.
and he was assassinated right on top of his Chiron vector. Now, I'm not a Western astrologer. We don't use Chiron as much, but I know enough to know that that's powerful.
Wow.
And people get in horrible car accidents near Mars line. Not necessarily in your case because of the functional energy of Mars in your chart, but in general, that there can be these challenges. So when looking at your chart, it looks like I would definitely want you to avoid, it looks like East Brazil.
It's funny because I've never really I felt this weird, like, you watch those documentaries and like drug trafficking and stuff and all that stuff on those. I've always felt weird, sketchy things. Like I've always wanted to go there, but not really wanted to go there.
Yeah.
Like all those places. Like Mexico, I feel safe. I like Mexico, but Brazil, Costa Rica, those like places, Panama.
It's just like these two planets are both associated with death. And they're both in their highest points of concentration there. Wow. So unless you're going there to drink a ton of ayahuasca, I would probably not do it.
I'd probably die.
Well, yeah, exactly. Or have a rebirth or something.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. If you're lucky.
Yeah, I'll avoid there. So
yeah. Okay, so moving on. So what are some other places? The thing is we talked with your Saturn vibration in your chart. It's not really a very beneficial line for you until you're ready for retirement. until you're ready for moksha. So I do encourage you to kind of limit your traveling towards the Saturn parts of your astrocartography, unless you're in a Saturn period, until you're ready for your retirement. And that's like so far away. Like, so your Saturn dasha begins in 2077. So you might.
I'll be dead by then.
Yeah, are you sure about that?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think I'll die young. I do. I think I'll die probably in my 60s, probably 65, 70s.
Yeah, which means that basically there's no indication then that at any time you should live near that Saturn line. Which means unless you're in a Saturn subdasha, you kind of want to limit your travel there. So that we talked about how that's Southern California.
I went to Southern, go see how how it takes you, the fate takes you there, because I did go to Southern California during my Venus Saturn dasha.
Okay.
And it wasn't like actually I really liked it, and I always would say I would live there, but it didn't turn out how I thought it was going to turn out.
Definitely. And again, the dasha is the most appropriate time to go to the line.
Interesting.
That's why I said, okay, here's the thing about your sun in those weird places that you don't want to go to. Possibly because your sun is in your career, you'll be invited to those places to present, to speak, to be a part of a conference, to do some type of event or some type of thing, like, because the sun is that position of leadership. So you might have career opportunities out there that don't even manifest though until your sun Mahadasha in 2020 to 2025 or 27.
And what are your thoughts on my Venus K2 coming up?
Venus K2, okay, so May, so you still have a little bit of time until that.
Yeah.
I always recommend with K2, try not too much to think about it because it is going to be totally different. This has probably just been a theme of your life already, which is like, it just turns out differently than you thought it would. And it doesn't mean that you don't get what you want. That kind of shows that you get what you want, just not like when and how you thought you would. Mm-hmm. And so that energy is going to be really strongly activated when you go into that K2 period. K2's activation on your Lagna shows a transformation to a higher calling. So basically, whatever the next level of your growth towards your Dharma, towards your higher calling is, you'll be called to that. If you're already on that path, you will just get super strong in that, especially because K2 is exalted. And if you're off your path, your life will have a series of unfortunate events till you're on the right path.
And you know, it's funny because I feel that, like, I have not been afraid of my Venus K2 because I'm doing astrology. I feel like if I stopped doing astrology, it would turn ugly, you know, and I think you said that in one, like, and I like, you mentioned something, you said how it affects you if you don't work with your K2 is if you're driving in the road, you get these flat tires. And I think that was you that said that, wasn't that you?
Yeah.
And that is, you know, and it's such a true thing. If you're off the path, K2 will make you get, like, throw you in the hospital. And I totally 100% agree with you because I've seen it pan out in so many charts, so many. So that's a good point.
Yeah, and as long, and your K2 is influencing your Dharma. So you have a blessing and a curse. You have an angel who is always making sure that you're connected to your higher purpose, your higher calling, to your Dharma. But as soon as you disconnect yourself from that, K2 turns into a violent demon that is willing to take away anything and everything from your life to get you back on the right path.
Can I tell you what it seems to be? Relationships. When I get into a relationship, the demon comes out.
Mm-hmm. That's that Rahu in the 7th and the K2 aspecting the 7th. It's the mirror. It's the mirror, you know? It's like for a compatibility for you because of that energy, somebody who has some darkness, some challenges, but is really dedicated to being honest about them and working on them is like the most compatible person for you. The red flag is like this person is too good to be true, because it's not like, it's like they're hiding.
And I will know, like, you can't hide anything to me. Like, first of all, I knew, my intuition knew it. Now B, I have astrology. Good luck. Not to mention, I wouldn't even date anybody unless I knew what time they were born. I wouldn't even consider it.
Yeah. That's a smart decision.
I know, especially with my chart. So,
okay, it's really good to know that. It's good to know that. Yeah.
That's how you have to get in control, I think, because I could have made way more mistakes. I could keep making mistakes because I feel like that's what it does. You just have to learn a ton of mistakes. It's tough. I think K2 in the first is so much harder than Rahu in the first. Like, I really, like, differently, it's like a different beast.
Oh, it is. It is totally different. I find that with Rahu people in the first, there's much more control of the ego. Basically, people who have Rahu in the first are possessed by Rahu. People who have K2 in the first are possessed by K2.
Yeah.
But the way that Rahu possesses you, it's kind of like there's some awareness and there's still a part of you in there. And when K2 possesses you, I just feel like the person is it's like there's no ego, there's like no connection. Like the person is just like a channel or vessel of K2. Like I don't. Does that make sense?
No, it does. That totally makes sense. Especially. It really, because you don't care. Like, you can detach from freaking anybody and anything, and like when people die, you don't even get sad. Like, it's unless it's an animal, okay? And I think that's because of my moon in Revati, and I think it's because like, if animals, I mean, it's not, that sounds kind of intense and kind of harsh, but like, you get these blocks in your head to understand that you come into this world alone and you're leaving alone. So it's like easy to be alone. Once you can get through, realize, because first I was so scared to be alone. It was like, oh my God, I can't be alone. I can never be alone. I need to always feel that. And then I was like, you know what, this shit's for the birds. And then when I figured out I could be alone, support myself totally just fine. I don't even know why. I was just so afraid of being alone. My God, then you get stuck where it's so nice being alone. You don't want anybody intruding your space. And that's like the problem.
Yeah.
And my friends with Rahu in the first tend to always be in relationships too, in a different way, but they can't be in controlling relationships.
Yeah. And I think about how K2 pushes you to moksha, and how like most people I've noticed who have K2 in the Lagna, they're very afraid of being alone. But they have to experience that fear of being alone to realize that they are not alone, and actually that they are never alone. So just because and that's a really hard lesson to learn, because usually when we think of being alone, well, it's because we don't have a companion. It's because we don't have a partner. It's because we don't have a friend that we're with. As you mentioned, when it comes times to go, you're not taking anyone with you, and you're not taking anything with you either. So yeah, I feel like with that K2 vibration, you have to experience not wanting to be alone, so that you realize that you are never alone. And one of my favorite teachers, Dr. Lott, always says, there is no greater difference than being alone and being lonely. So I think that's a big lesson for the K2 Lagna, is to be alone but not lonely.
Yeah, very true.
And Rahu people, they love to be alone.
Yeah. And
they're like, leave me alone.
Yeah, and Rahu people, I noticed the Rahu people crack me up, because do you find it so hard to get good, did you find it hard to get good astrology readings too? Because do you feel this way, like when you have Rahu and K2 in your first house, your life can be kind of unpredictable. So when, like, anytime somebody gave me a reading, it never panned out the way they thought it would pan out. It always was like the same subject, just 100%. Rahu's going to come sweep on your Venus, sweep somebody off your feet. No, swept the rug from under my feet. Like, that's how my life has been with readings. And I've learned. And if, it didn't happen, I would never have learned astrology. So I'm not complaining. It's just kind of funny because I tend to
that makes perfect sense, because there's that deceptive element going on where, you know, like you're being told something and you're not experiencing that. So you got to learn it for yourself. I mean, Rahu is always about figuring it out yourself, experiencing it yourself. And no matter who tells you to do it, as a Rahu Lagna person, I always joke around. My father, he gives great advice. My entire life, when he would give me advice, especially until I was in my mid-20s or something like that, I would always go against his advice. I'd be like, Dad, like, you don't know anything. Just leave me alone. Like, go away. Right. Every single thing that he was like, this is going to happen, like, because you don't follow my advice, like, he was right. And, like, it happened. And so now, like, there's all of this maturity in me, like, listening to my parents and respecting what they have to say. But initially, I didn't want to hear any of it, you know?
And I also feel like with the nodes, you'll never have full support. Like, if you want to do something, nobody's going to be like, oh, that's a great idea. You know, like, more power to you. No, it's usually like, that's weird, or, you know, that's a bad idea.
That's completely true. And especially if Rahu or Ketu is in the first house or the fifth house or the ninth house, then you have an outsider dharma. And what an outsider dharma creates, and this is you and me and anyone else who has Rahu or Ketu in the first, fifth house or ninth house, strongest in the first house. And basically it means, like, your dharma, it is always going to be an outsider dharma. You're going to be reaching a minority. You yourself appear to be a minority. And you're kind of always working on the outskirts of society. Now, something very interesting, though, about both of our charts, we both have this really strong outsider vibration and then these really powerful Sun-Mercury energies in our 10th house. So even though we have such a profound outsider vibration, we're still ushering in that outsider energy, that ancient, mystical, esoteric energy. We're trying to make it mainstream. We're trying to bring it to the, as one of my teachers, making Jyotish sexy. Now, that's just a joke. That's just a joke. I mean, it's an ancient science that I have all of this respect for, but that's the duality. It's like, you have this outsider dharma, and how can I bring that into the mainstream so everyone can appreciate it? You know, like, everyone is like, oh, I'm woke. Like, you know, like, I'm woke. Like, I was with a cab driver the other day. He's like telling me that he's woke. I'm like, if you only knew about Jyotish, like, like, that's the next level. Like, everyone's just going to feel awake at that point.
No, it's so true. Like, it seriously, it changed. And I was very religious, like, because I wanted to be. It was like, I went to Christian schools. I used to try to speak in tongues. I used to write Heidi Loves Jesus on the walls. And it's funny, because when I started doing YouTubes and going on this conspiracy channel, which is how all this started, I really, like, didn't realize how bad religion was so against astrology. And it cracked me up, because I went to Christian schools and I've never heard it was bad. So it didn't really even bother me. But thank God I never heard that, because if I did hear that, I might not have done this. You know, I would have been scared, but I didn't. And, you know, I'll say it makes the most sense. And I like to call it, like, I call what I believe is, I've learned Heidiism, because it's going to be my own way. And I believe in God. I believe in a higher power, but nobody really knows the facts. You know, it's like, so nobody's died and can really come back and tell you exactly what has happened. So nobody really has that answer. But the answers for me are in this Vedic astrology. So if I had to pick anything, it would be closest to Hinduism or something of that sort.
Me too. And those strong nodal energies, they always have their own religion. Same with Jupiter retrograde people.
Really?
Yeah. It's their religion is it's conglomeration of a lot of different ideologies, because the Rahu is on Ketu. They're against dogma, but they're pro mysticism and spirituality. So it really emphasizes that energy in your life. And I think religion is always dogma. Like, you can't you can't even mention the word religion without thinking of some rule,
Right.
that religion has. So the Rahu Ketu people, they're the most mystical, but also potentially the least religious.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Unless sometimes, like I've noticed a Rahu Jupiter in Cancer or in Pisces, that can be real religious.
Exactly. The Guru Chandal Yoga can be one of the most dogmatic combinations, which is basically self-deception. I think the dogmatic religious types are really self-deceptive individuals. They're very confused on a very deep level for them to think that their religion is right and another religion is inferior to that. I mean, I don't think there could be a greater confusion than that.
I think that's a great, like, I didn't think we were going to go here, but I mean, that is such a great point, because to me, like, we're so in a bubble here in the United States. So like Christianity or whatever, and then when I just heard the typical numbers, how many, there's a billion people in India, and there's not even that in, that's the size of Texas, New Mexico. I was like, wait a second here. So like, when this and you just hear these small little facts, because I was sheltered, like, where you, as an American, you don't learn about other cultures, you learn Spanish, and then, that's about it. That's about it. So you don't learn all like the other things. And I, with K2 and Rahu, you're going to be drawn to it no matter what. It's just going to come into your life. And but it's such a shame, because so many people that live in the USA that are so sheltered, that come from these religious backgrounds, they just can't get their heads out of the sand, quite honestly. And that's just the truth. And it's sad, but I respect it. I get it. But like, cause they don't want to, they feel like when they've been lied to all this time, I say that's what it's like, to be 60 years old and have to accept that you've been lied to your entire life. It's a story to keep control, like the whole Christianity thing. It's quite deceptive to a way, but like you just said, it's self-deceptive too. So
that's the Kali Yuga for you. I remember one time I was going to the post office to send some gems to a client, some Jyotish remedies, and the person's like, "What do you do?" And I was like, "Oh, I do astrology, like I do Jyotish." And they were like, "Oh, I don't do any of that." And I was like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "I don't do any of that divinatory. It's against God." I was just so blown away and like confused. I didn't even know what divinatory was. I had to Google it.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, I'm going to tell you, from a business practical side, when you start looking at people's tax returns from being in the mortgage industry, and you see some of the government names of what these people work for, like some astrological signs, okay? You have an awakening. Like, everybody uses astrology secretively. And I'm like, maybe I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist, but I'm never going to use what our government says that our astrology is. Like, they've twisted, in my opinion, And and for me, like, the whole thing is, if you can see it on the app and you can see that Sagittarius and Saturn is in Sagittarius, it's certainly not in Capricorn, like, you can see it. I don't know why people say, oh, it's in Capricorn. It's like, no, I'm going to believe what I see. That's just the type of person that I am. And I get it, the whole procession, and there's so many debates, but personally for me, I'm all about the facts. So
that totally resonates with me. And for me, I believe that whatever is the most ancient is the best. Now, I know that sounds super biased.
No, I agree with you.
But the texts of Jyotish date back 4,000 to 5,000 years. Then there was probably another oral tradition, probably 7,000 years older than that. So you're looking at Western. I don't like
no.
astrologers feel bad, but you're looking at something that's been done for a few hundred years versus something that's been done for like 10,000. And I just think, well, I respect Western astrology, and so I at the very least there should be co-mutual respect.
I agree.
And there's a lot of Vedic astrologers that seek to do this integrative work with Western astrology, and I really respect that. And some of my students are Western astrologers who want to study Jyotish, and I learned so much from them, and I love it.
Agreed. I totally agree because like the outer planets too, you can learn so much.
Yeah.
I think that the outer planets 100% need to be given a little because like you're when Joni said to me Uranus in the first house and it completely described me, like your I have Uranus in the first house, which yeah that's me. Like there's no getting it's like the biggest cluster F in my first house, K2 Mars Uranus. Like it couldn't be any more of
Yeah.
a just a rebel, just gonna try to, but keep in mind it was secretive at first, it was manipulative, it went through all those stages.
Yeah.
It knows every trick to the trade, so you can't lie or pull one over on me, that's for sure, because I've pulled every trick to the trade. So I've learned a lot of lessons and I had to deal with a lot of things and I had to, but it's panned out like 100% exactly how it is.
I totally feel you. It's like, for me, it's just like wanting so badly to respect the way it's been done since its inception, like the ancient Jyotish method. And then at the same time, being a Rahu Aquarius Lugna, which is like, as innovation, very strong about innovation. And so my whole Dharma feels like trying to maintain the cultural the cultural heritage of the science, but also to bring new ideas, to bring innovation, to bring integration. And I think things like astrocartography, the outer planets, these are great ways of like the innovative side of Jyotish.
Yeah, because I'm curious to know your opinion on this, and it sounds like you're going to think a little bit like me, because I always say, I have so much respect for all of the ancient texts and everything, but let's face it, times have changed, okay? People that were kings back then could be a manager now. You have to take that with a grain of salt because they didn't have the technology like they did now. Things are so different, like things like technology and things like cryptocurrency, that wasn't described, like gold and so, like there's so many things that have evolved, so you have to look at things so much differently.
Exactly. And I believe, if the ancient astrologers had telescopes, they would have wrote about the outer planets too.
Exactly. Yeah.
They interpreted what they were able to interpret. And now, like you mentioned, we have new tools which allow for, it doesn't take away anything from the original interpretation. It just adds to it like a supplement.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And depending on, do you notice that you have to read people's charts differently? Like if you were raised in India, right, you're going to read that person's chart differently if they were raised in the United States, because back then you couldn't communicate with these different cultures to know what the heck was going on.
And yet it's so interesting. Some of my Indian clients are the ones that prefer that the modern planets be included in the reading.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny. The Indian clients I get, they're like, all right, I saw you on the Leak Project. My family's into this stuff. I think it's crazy, but go ahead, give me a reading. It's so funny. It cracks me up, but.
Yeah. Hey, as long as they're open-minded enough to get the reading, there's a part of their soul that is going to benefit from that.
I agree. You can learn so much about you through astrology. That's the main thing, to learn who you really are,
Yeah, I mean, my whole first year of astrology was basically spent studying my chart.
Mine too. Mine too.
And what does a Rahu Lugna? I still have no clue. I know a little bit, but the future is still very hard for me to see my own future.
Oh, me too. I gave up on that a long time ago. You can't. I 100%. And you know what? If I think something, I was so worried about Jupiter going into my second house with the points of 0, the 0 points of Jupiter in my second house. I was petrified. I thought it was going to be so bad financially. And I'm like, how much worse could it possibly get after all this stuff? It's been the best year I've had since 2012.
Yeah. I mean,
Jupiter in the 12th.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where I'm saying, every astrologer said it was, that would see it was like, oh, yeah, you got to be careful, I mean, I bought a car in Mercury retrograde. I've done everything you shouldn't do. I have. So, it is what it is. But I'm kind of like that. I'm like that rule breaker that wants to just.
And also there, we've talked a lot about philosophy. The Sanskrit name for a planet is Graha. which means to grab. So we are constantly being grabbed by these forces which are stronger than us, which are more powerful than us, which are influencing our thoughts, which are influencing our actions. But we are still a soul which is created from something greater that I believe can transcend the chart. Ultimately, the chart is just a tool, is a tool for our evolution from one lifetime to the other. But I believe certain like Satgurus, like Amma, my guru, or Neem Karoli Baba, these other fully realized being like Yogananda, they're beyond their chart. Their chart, they doesn't mean their chart doesn't have influence on it, but it doesn't. It means that many of their actions can be greater than the challenging influence in their chart. It's like they transcended their karma, or they worked through all of their karma. So like when you're looking at a chart, that you're looking at your karma, you know, and if you've worked through it, then you don't have to deal with the negative karma. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does. And when you say a past life too, would you say which lines you think definitely the markers down there, but would you also say, would you look at any particular planet lines?
So yes, the moon shows the soul memory. The moon is a strong indication for the soul's memory, especially because we talk about karmic patterns, but karmic circles is what I meant. We talk about karmic circles, which is though certain people, certain souls that travel with other souls from one lifetime to another, and that's all indicated through the moon. Also, Rahu represents your past lives, which are connected towards your ancestors on your mother's side, and your father's and your Ketu shows your past lifetimes connected towards your father's ancestors. But basically, yeah, the moon line usually has a strong indication of the soul's memory.
Interesting. And that's over in there. I see it. It's a few places, right? So can you just...
Yeah, so it's affecting Hawaii. It's also affecting Alaska up here. It looks like it's going through Egypt very strongly.
I knew that. I knew that was definitely... Is there anything in like Syria and all the... Where is Syria? It's so small.
Syria is up here.
So kind of
and it looks like you got a strong Saturn line near there.
I have a big tie to Syria for some reason, and like even just Pakistan and all those countries for some strange reason.
Well, yeah, and then India, you have all of this concentration of energy here. We have Rahu, we have Neptune, we have Mars, we have Mercury, we have Chiron. So, I mean, we're just looking at a lot of energy in India as well, a lot of past lifetime. Chiron is something, is Western, but as I love this astrocartography, I believe in the innovation. I study these things. And I like to think of Chiron as where your past lifetimes and your future lifetimes can meet. So that's right there in Pune, Mumbai, Kerala, like the whole west coast of India.
And listen how crazy. So that just gave me insane chills. And think about that. That's how, like, the wounded healer Chiron, like, that's how I healed, was through Vedic astrology. And, you know, that's where all those lines are.
I can relate to that too, like healing through Vedic astrology, because it helped me understand how real karma is.
Yeah.
And I just, my actions became so much more reflective because I realized I'm just creating karma with every thought, with every action I have. And I just I want to improve my karma. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
I think I love Jyotish because it allows us to improve our karma.
Do you have any planets in Purva Bhattapadra?
Yeah, I believe I do. I believe my Mars.
I had a feeling. I just felt that.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. You do the nakshatras a lot? Or
I do the nakshatras. I love the nakshatras. I love Dennis Harness's writings on the nakshatras. I have been studying the nakshatras. It's like this additional layer when reading a chart. It seems like always there's new things I'm learning about the different nakshatras and how they influence us. But I think it reveals like the way that the soul evolves, the way that the soul grows, the way that the soul travels from one lifetime to another. You know, I think it's one of the aspects of Vedic astrology that is just like so powerful, so unique. And I actually like studying the individual stars too.
Yeah. I am obsessed. The nakshatras have been, because I went through that debacle of like Western or Vedic, tropical. So I listened to every nakshatra and I listened to the padas and I studied myself which one was more accurate. Because like, yeah, I could see myself as Sagittarius rising with Mars, K2 and Sagittarius. But then no, because of other certain things, like, yeah, that's Jupiter and Mula. You know, I just went around the whole circle for years. So
Yeah.
finally the nakshatras, I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm just reading charts with the nakshatras. And that's what I learned.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's beautiful method, you know. And what's your lagna, your ascendant nakshatra?
Honorata.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, there's so, and I have a lot of honorata. K2's in honorata, Uranus is in honorata. Well, that's the way I use it, the calculations. Do you see that? Do you use Kala?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I have honorata.
Do you?
Yeah.
What do you have in honorata?
No, for you.
Oh, okay. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
And you're a Libra moon, you said, right?
Yeah, Libra moon in Vishaka.
Mm-hmm. You know, yeah, like those two nakshatras, Vishaka and Purva Bhattapadra, I have a lot of clients with that. And those nakshatras are like so powerful. Like you say you're not psychic, but I'm going to tell you, if you want to, right there, that Purva Bhattapadra one is intense. Like, and you know, so it's good you're doing this stuff, but you're more psychic than you know. You got, like you said, you have to watch what you see, what you like think and say. I always tell people that have planets in Purva Bhattapadra, it's like, you could just think something and that like negative about somebody and that thing can happen. It's like that intense, like, I don't want to say it's not, you know, not witchy, but it's like this, the one that can put the spells on people for sure. Same with Uttara Bhattapadra, I noticed.
That's actually the one that my Mars is in. Uttara.
Uttara Bhattapadra? Yeah.
Yeah.
That one is like great for tarot too. Did you ever do tarot?
No, I haven't, but
Oh,
I've
yeah.
had a tarot reading, like I've had one reading done for me, but I've never studied it myself.
So like I've known when I've incorporated tarot in my readings, people don't even know it. Like, and I'm just flipping cards like with transits. It has made my readings so much better because it's like confirming just another source of that transit. Like, and you would be so good at tarot. Oh my God,
Thank you.
with
I
that.
should try it out then.
You should give it a whirl. Yes, you should. Yeah.
I was just gonna zoom in on India for you to see even stronger what those energies for you there. It looks really strong. Yeah, so you got Rahu over here in Pakistan, and you got Mercury, Chiron, Neptune, and Mars.
Mm-hmm.
It's really powerful.
Sri Lanka too, because I had a lot of interconnections with people from Sri Lanka.
That's where I get all my gems from.
Really?
Yeah, because according to the Jyotish text, if you get the sapphires, like they have to come from Sri Lanka or they don't have the same potency.
So you're really into gemstones. I would like you to do a show on that one day.
Oh, I love gemstone therapy. Like
Yeah.
it's actually like changed my life in a really positive way, I feel like.
Do you have planets in Virgo or Chitra?
No planets in Virgo, no planets in Chitra.
What about any outer planets in Chitra or anything? Usually that's like the gemstone, the crystals too, I noticed.
Yeah, I don't think I do, actually.
Huh.
Nothing in Chitra.
What's
No.
what's your Venus? What's your Venus in?
Vishaka.
Okay.
My Venus and Moon are about 1.5 degrees apart.
Oh, so you have Venus and Moon. That's nice. Do you meditate?
I do meditation, but I also prefer the pranayama exercises.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, interesting. Because I've noticed lots of like a lot of Libras are like really good meditators.
Yeah, I'm like a peacemaker. I'm always trying to bring peace
Yeah.
between people.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm always trying to stir up that that Libra pot with Saturn. Oh, that's so funny. I just like everybody's like exalted Saturn, exalted Saturn. It's like, yeah, exalted Saturn in the 12th house. That tends to be quite interesting. You know, I've had to learn a lot of lessons with that.
Yeah, a lot of letting go.
A lot of letting go and a lot of lessons, like with like money and expenses and just stuff like that, and not family stuff too, like with my brother too. There was definitely some karma there as well. So yeah, it was been an interesting go around, that's for sure. I've had to
Yeah,
learn a lot of lessons, but
yeah, but as my teacher, Dr. Lod, he would say, if you have Saturn exalted in the 12th house, you will become enlightened in this lifetime. You just might not want to.
yeah.
It's kind of forced upon you through life's experiences.
Oh yeah, it was. Oh my God. Like if you would have, my Saturn return and what happened in that period of my life was the divorce, the endings. And if you would have read this note I wrote, and I was miserable. Like I didn't know what the hell was going on with me. Was making so much money and it was just, my life was just so miserable. And this is when I had a big breaking point. And it was the hardest thing in the world, just to suck it up and leave everything. I lived in a picture perfect neighborhood, 4,000 square foot home. Everything was wonderful, and I just like rolled out and left. And and it was, but that's been like the story of my life, like rolling out and leaving. And if things are getting too cozy, it's like not right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the need to, when things get too cozy, that's the first layer of attachment.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Hopefully you'll come back on again and we'll do another session, but I definitely hope everybody goes to your website and check. Do you have a YouTube channel or anything like that?
No, Saptarishi like kind of has me full time right now. So
yeah, so he has a great channel with a ton of great astrologers on there. I definitely I follow that. So Saptarishi's Astrology, and so thanks so much for coming on here, and I'm going to link all your stuff below.
I really appreciate all the philosophy and just satsang and just communion that we shared here today. We talked about cartography. We also just talked about life and the journey, and I really appreciate that.
I like to just go with the flow,
Yeah, me too.
All right.